Welcome to History at High Noon today. It's been an eventful morning for me this morning. Joanne Locke called at 9:40 to tell me she had a doctor's appointment out of town and couldn't be here. So I had to scramble for a speaker. And then my granddaughter called, and I had to go let the air conditioner man to her house at West Green, and this was at 5 to 11. So if I'm out of sorts today, you'll understand why. I'm crazy. First of all, we're glad you're all here. We're going to have a good time today. I got some good stuff to share with you. First of all, this is for everybody, there's people watching also. If you bought tickets for Legends and Lanterns for October of last year, you must come by the museum February the 28th through March the 4th in the morning time to get your new ticket. The old ticket won't get you in the gate. If it is not picked up by March 4th, those tickets not picked up will be offered to the general public. I have 37 waiting on a waiting list. So if you don't pick up your ticket by March the 4th, especially folks watching at home, you will not have a ticket. I'm sorry, that's the only thing we can do. You gave me your name and I'm going to contact you, but I ain't going to wait on you. Okay? Something else I'd like to mention is, let me get my glasses on so I can read it correctly. March 5th is the Wiregrass Art Guild's kids program. If you've never been or if you've got grandchildren, take them. It's wonderful. And my favorite thing for the spring is Munchin Music at Emma Ward Park. It's on Wednesdays. I know I'll have to miss one because of History at High Noon, but we'll live through it, okay? Also, I need volunteers at the museum. The second Friday from 10 to 1, the second Thursday from 10 to 1, and either first or second Saturday from 10 to 1. So if anybody out there in TV land would like to be a volunteer, just call me and let me know. Now then, we have rescheduled Joanne Lott. And also Pong Holton is coming. He came to the United States in 1975. And everybody knows Pong with his artwork. But he said he thought the United States was a culture shock, but when he moved to West Green, he realized what a culture shock was. So, and he's like family to us because they lived right there at us and became family. Grandma Ray taught Ari how to read. So, I mean, it's just, he's family and he's coming too. Also, I would like your input. You can text me. My number's 381-1135. Everybody has it but Biden. And just text me with any ideas or something that you want to hear or see, and I'll get back to you, okay? Because I need people. Now remember, I had a social studies teacher in high school and college. He knows everything, but he can't tell you nothing because he wanders and he doesn't speak. So I need somebody that can deliver a message and won't put y'all to sleep, okay? That's why you're so lucky to have me every once in a while. You won't sleep, okay? Now today, last minute deal, we're going to talk about a man that came to Coffee County from Tazewell, Tennessee. And when I tell you his name, you'll all say, oh, I know him. He came, he sold his farm and his business in Tazewell and came to Coffee County. His mother was an Exum. And for those of you who know Douglas history, on College Avenue, the really nice house on the corner next to the four-way stop they put up was the Exum home. They later moved to Atkinson County. So his family was from, his mother's family was from this area. So he had a tie here to start with. Now it's got you wondering, doesn't it, Aggie Pat? Who is that? He went by the initials E.E. When he died in 1972, and I'm doing the back so we can get to the front, he had 887 acres of pond and cultivation, and he had 250 acres of pastures, woods, buildings, and equipment. I know this because I have his will. He also owned, or partially or totally, 9 tobacco warehouses in Coffee and Atkinson County. Okay? Now, when he came in 1935, he first went to Pearson, Georgia, and bought the McNeil Home Place. He paid a big, I can't see these dollar store glasses give me a fit. He paid a big $5,000 for the home place, the farm and the house. In 1936, he came to Coffee County. He bought 463 acres from Federal Land Bank of Columbia, South Carolina. This is on the Highway 158 where he bought it. His neighbors back then was Mr. Baker, Ola Vickers, Henry Minix, Jim Harrell, and Dennis Paul. Anybody starting to get a clue here? This is like a treasure hunt. In 1942, he bought 268 adjoining acres from W.J. Barlow, who owned the freezer locker and John Deere and all that stuff, and M.D. Dickerson, who was one of Douglas's prime lawyers, lived on Gaskin Avenue and had a problem with a bottle. In 1947, he bought land on Highway 32 next to the American Legion for $1,400. In 1955, he joined property adjoining his from Mr. Dormney that backed up to Bear Creek. Anybody got any ideas yet? What did you do on Sundays in Coffee County if you were a teenager in the 60s? Where did you go? No? Out of town. Hilliard's Pond. E.E. Hilliard owned that farm. Now, Hilliard's Pond was a place we went, and they tried to teach me how to ski. I can't even roller skate, so they didn't teach me to ski. But E.E. Hilliard had a pond. And in the beginning, Dr. Benson, remember Dr. Benson at the hospital? He went to him because he wanted a place to ski. Anybody ever been to a pond in the country? Do you know what's in that pond in the country when cows are all around it? It was still in that pond there too. That's what it was full of. He and John Parker actually built the first ski lifts that were in the pond. This ain't no beach, baby. This is a pond, okay? When you got out in the water in the pond, Lisa Benson, who is now T-Cat Ford, she said when they ski and they get out, they had 5-gallon buckets of water to wash the stuff off of them. Now later in the 60s, he had moved the cows out, so it wasn't quite so bad. But he also had a little country store there. Does anybody remember who ran that store? I went to school with him. He played football. Woodrow Stone. Woodrow Stone and his parents farmed for Mr. Hilliard, as well as Dewey Hayes's pa-in-law, Cecil Carver. Yeah, Clara's daddy. He farmed some land for him too. But Woodrow Stone's mama and daddy ran that store on the weekends. And you had to be careful if you bought chocolate, because sometimes if you bought chocolate and you opened it up, it'd been there so long it had things crawling inside. But anyways, that's how it all started. And in 1972, he died. He had 2 wives that he had paid off, and he had no children. When he got a divorce, he just gave them a settlement and cut the cord. He had several nieces and nephews. 2 of them worked for him, especially in the tobacco market. When he died in 72, his nephew Carl, who was his right-hand man, died 3 months later before the will was processed. So after that, his niece Ruth, who was a CPA, bookkeeper, auditor, all that, she ran the business. Now then, he had no life insurance, no jointly owned property, and he was buried in Tennessee. Ruth tried to figure out what in the world, nobody, no nieces or nephews. They opened up the house and the family could come get what they wanted, you know. Nobody wanted a farm in South Georgia. So Ruth took it upon herself to find something to do with the property. And they contacted a company that bought glass sand. There's a lot of sand in that area, still is, that is important in the making of glass. The only problem was it wasn't deep enough and wide enough. It wasn't enough for it to be financially solvent for them, so they didn't do it. But then they sent flyers out. She sent flyers all around to real estate developers. North Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, everywhere. She sent out approximately 60 letters to real estate developers with this property to sell. Just so happens some folks decided they wanted to buy it. And that's when the fun begins. He had given land or gave land to all the people that had farmed for him, 5 or 6 acres. But in 1974, Lige Waldron, the guy from Ocilla, they bought it. The first payment was $150,000 on June 1st. The second payment was $550,000 in '75. The next payment was $250,000 in '76. So 5, 7, 8, 9, $9.5, almost $1 million for a pond and some dirt. Oh, and the skating rink and the store. $1 million is what they eventually paid for what came Holiday Beach. Now, Holiday Beach was a great attraction for Coffee County. Not only did they bring tourists and all in, but they had a huge campground, and you'd have people that camp out there every weekend. The Maleys were one. I mean, they were there every weekend. They had a store, a campground. They had rides galore. And you know what happens when you go in business with people? Somebody wants out. And it's coasted along for a long time, really, till 1983, 84, when they finally dissolved. But it not only brought tourists, it gave a lot of folks summer jobs. Like Brad Reiner was a lifeguard. Rhonda Taylor was a lifeguard.
I ran the gate.
Donna ran the gate. How about that? And it's amazing what people, there's a site on there, Holiday Beach Memories, that actually Rick Wood started several years ago. And Rick was, I guess, third man in charge, second man, depending on when you ask him, whatever, out there for several years. But Holiday Beach gave back to the community much more so, I think, than those 3 men did with concerts and everything else. Now, Holiday Beach was famous or infamous for their after parties. Seems if you are a country singer or Dr. Hook or any of those people, you get a lot of perks when you play for folks. He would use anybody remember the Townhouse Restaurant? Yeah. Okay. Dolly Parton said that one group went to the Townhouse Restaurant and was not allowed back for a private party. They had a no alcohol policy, and they just didn't fly. But they also had parties at Lige Waldron's house and other people's homes, and they were quite an extravaganza, and you had to be with the elite to go, or crazy. One or the other, it didn't matter. Some of them made crazy demands. Dr. Hook wanted hot dogs backstage. Hot dogs? Really? You know? So things like that was what was so interesting to me when I started doing all this stuff, and Rick was a well of information. But those are the kind of things that we heard about, but we do. How many went to a concert? Everybody went to concerts. I'm going to tell you a funny story. I went with my sister one time, and we went to see Charlie Rich. She liked Charlie Rich. I don't know why. We're walking around the building. As we come out, this old man walks out by us. And Joey said, God, I didn't know Charlie Rich was that old. And he said, well, I'm really not. It was Charlie Rich. Alabama. Did you ever see Alabama? Me too, twice. A friend of mine got me tickets from Keith Fowler. And she said, I got you great seats. She sat up front. I was by the bathroom. But it was a lot of memories and a lot of times. Now, before it was Holiday Beach, even when it was Hilliard's, the county offered to pave the road out there from the 158 all the way in. And Mr. Hilliard said no. He didn't want the public on his road. It was his private property. And if he didn't want somebody on there, he didn't want them in there. So they never paved that road because he didn't want them to. Another thing, there were a lot of parties. The skating rink and the beach, as it was on this side where the Opera House was later. But across from there, there was a bunch of woods, which would later become a campground. And that's where my sister's class reunion met one day, one Saturday. And I had to take my husband home in the back seat. But, they used to have some wild, crazy parties out there because Mr. Hilliard didn't care as long as you cleaned up after yourself. Had picnic tables, all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell a story on myself. Me and a friend got out of class at South Georgia at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock was the activity hour. Remember that? So we went out to Holiday Beach to see if anybody was out there. It was on a Friday. And Carlos Langford pulled through, hunting high school kids, skipping school. And he said, young lady, you're supposed to be in English right now. I said, no, sir, my English class was at 8 o'clock. He said, Joanne Ray, get your tail up and get to that high school. So I always fussed at her that she got me in trouble with a man I didn't even know. But people would go out there for all kind of reasons. There used to be a waterfall on the backside that went to Tiger Creek. Did y'all remember that? Some people said they did skinny dipping back there. I'm not sure, but I'd have to ask Lou in Georgia about that. But it was just the place. You didn't remember it?
No, I remember going on picnics with our
Right.
family at the waterfall.
At the waterfall, yep.
Yeah.
We used to have real good times out there because there was nowhere, there wasn't anything else to do, so you went to Hilliard's on Sundays because somebody had a boat. You could ride if you didn't ski. And those are times that are gone. I don't think we'll ever see those kind of times again where it was just like a family gathering. I just don't think we will. But anyway, after the three gentlemen decided they didn't like each other quite that well anymore, they started selling off lots. And what I found was there was no restrictions set on building. So you could build, I think it was Danny had the A-shaped frame house, or you could be $1 million house, whatever, right next to you. How many have been riding out there lately? Have you seen the type of homes that are out there? They vary greatly, very greatly. I mean, nothing's wrong with them or anything, but there's not a cohesive plan to that community. It was just, and one of the things that got people buying land was if you bought land out there, you could fish. And that way, a friend of mine bought an acre of land so he could fish out there. And then when everybody started fishing out there wasn't any fish, so you didn't want the land anymore. So it's one of those things in Douglas that if you ask anybody in South Georgia, they know Holiday Beach. Most of us have tried to forget Hilliard's Pond. But It was fun, and it was exciting, and it put us in the forefront. Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake was another one. And if you've never been, haven't seen, well, I haven't been by there in about 10 years, but they still had all the stuff out there, and it's fallen down something terrible. At least ours is cleaner. Any questions that I might could answer? I'm sorry this was so fly on the cuff, but I didn't have long to get ready for this one. Usually it takes me a day or two.
During the days of Hilliard's Pond, we had another local celebrity who kind of sort of still is a little celebrity, but I went there just to see Jan Malthus.
Yeah, skate. Jan Malthus skating. I'd never seen anybody skate like she tried to teach me how to skate. And after 10 minutes, she said, why don't you just go watch? But we have pictures of her at Holiday Beach skating.
Don't you have her skates in here?
I did. I gave them back to her. They were on loan.
Okay.
I don't keep everything. But yeah, skating was a big deal, but I just couldn't skate. Wasn't no sense me going in there.
Never got off the rail.
I got off the rail, but my sister actually broke her own fingers skating over her fingers at Lake B. So,
She skated right over.
right over three of them, just like that, with their own boot. So, anybody else or got a memory you want to share with us? We like these memories. We're collecting memories. Yes?
I hope I can tell it.
Yeah.
Stokesville Church, after I married, I moved away, and my two girls were born. Bobby and I came back here for a visit. And Stokesville Church, no, I take that back, it's just before we married, but Stokesville was having a gathering at the skating rink. Now, why, I don't know, but they did, and we went. And my aunt, who was in her late 70s, I guess, decided to learn to skate.
Oh my God.
She had on a dress, a nice dress, and she strapped those skates on, and she held the rail all the way around with her other sister, who was just a little younger than she, going along beside her saying, Ross, you're going to kill yourself. Idiot, why don't you get off there? She got all the way around, and then she fell just as flat as she My husband was a good skater, and he took off after her. One of her earrings went this way, and one went that way. And that's the only thing she was concerned about.
Her earrings.
And everybody else was concerned about her bones.
You don't worry about your bones. Anybody else got a memory?
Carol, I hate to keep interrupting.
Go ahead.
But I've always had a little bit of an infatuation with anybody that can play country music. Mm-hmm. My daddy was asked to play with several of the stars because back in the day, most of those people that we called stars they weren't even able to afford to take their bands with them.
Right.
So often Rick Wood would call Daddy to play steel guitar with
Whoever.
And on his deathbed, I said, Daddy, who was the best person that you ever played with? What was the most fun you had? And he said, Hank Williams.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm thinking, okay, he's already passed over. I know he did not play with Hank Williams. And I said something, I said, Daddy, I don't think you ever played with Hank Williams. He said, Junior. So he got to play with Hank Williams Jr. at Holiday Beach.
Yes.
My mother and father camped out there a good bit back in the day. They'd go anywhere camping except in the yard. They'd have to drive. They had to leave home. They would camp out there a good bit. And I remember people like, coal miner's daughter, wasn't it?
Loretta Lynn.
And Jerry Clower and a bunch of others. They would walk to the picnic ground and eat fried chicken with you.
Yeah, they would.
And Merle Haggard was out there. He was always one of my idols.
Yeah.
And I got on his bus and was talking to him. He took off his jacket. He had a short sleeve shirt on and packed a short camel in his pocket. And I don't have anything as much as he smoked, but anyway, I gave him a check and hoping he would endorse it. Deposit it. I never got the check back.
Trying to get his autograph.
Another thing, when I was in high school, I'd go out there and check on Mr. Hilliard's cow 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night on Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I bet you did.
Go check on the out and make sure they were bedded.
That's who we saw riding around, wasn't it?
But they're all gone a little too fast.
Oh, yeah, they are. There were a lot of them. And somebody says, oh, I live on the pond. I said, no, you live on the place on behind the pond.
Yeah, and your man is behind closed doors, right?
Right.
Rich?
Yeah, right. But,
Carol,
yes, go ahead, come on.
Make myself a part
Go,
of it.
now you're part of us.
I used to work the Skylift out there. Rick happened to do that there, and I wondered if the public really knew what kind of danger it was when they ride.
No, they didn't.
Because when the roller coaster brakes get hot, they wouldn't work. Rick would call about 3 or 4 of us. And just gather around, so when they come around, they come around, smile, and they just know what kind of danger. We had to grab the slow it down. The brakes would work some.
Right, but not enough to
So, but I used to run spot, and that's when I wouldn't run in spotlights.
Yeah.
Because I did
do that too.
Yeah. But I just wonder how much danger they knew they was in.
Well, let me tell you something. Anytime, I never would ride a ride at the fair, because when they put it together with baling wire and string, I ain't getting on it. And I saw some of the people that were working the rides out there, and I wasn't getting on that either. So that was it. But it was a wonderful time and a wonderful memory, and it's something we won't ever get back. We won't have that. Can you imagine 100 teenagers somewhere and no fight, no alcohol, no, I mean, that's unheard of in today's age.
Carol, one other good memory I have of
Okay.
that place is Dr. Benson, my Sunday school teacher in Broxton.
Yeah.
Broxton Baptist. And he would take us by there all the time, skiing.
Yeah.
Of course, he was a professional skier that would get certified down at Cypress Garden by that ski,
Yeah.
or whatever down there. But Dr. Benson learned to barefoot ski out there at Hilliard's Pond, it was then. And we would pull him, and he would do all his practicing. And he learned to barefoot ski out there, and he would give us a turn and just trying to stay up on ski. That was a fond memory.
I'd wear a bathing suit and all out there, but about knee deep was about all I wanted to go, because I had a pond in West Green, and I knew what was in that pond. I didn't want it on me. So, anybody else got a memory or a question? Is there anybody in here that has never heard of Hilliard's or Holiday Beach?
And Mr. Hilliard owned the tobacco warehouse over here.
He owned 9 in Coffee and Exon County.
Right.
He did. He had a lot of property.
Well, prior to his owning all the tobacco warehouses, my daddy, J.W.
Sykes.
Sykes, came down from Knoxville, Tennessee, and he bought the red and the green tobacco warehouses. And my mama done fell in love with that man.
She did. She did.
She never had a roof over her head nor
Anybody else got anything? I'm sorry you had to sit through this show today, but this is the best I could do on an hour and a half notice. So, but come back next week. Come back next week.